Paul is still hanging out in Caesarea. We looked at last week how he was on trial and Festus had left him in prison. Now, we also saw how there was a change. So there was a new governor that was coming in, but he'd been left in prison. So this new governor gets up and there's just another time that he's in trial. So he kind of has that trial again. And so what happens is Paul appeals to Caesar. Now, that's a big thing that Paul does. So we're in chapter 25. Now, when Paul does that, it doesn't mean that Caesar is going to try his case. It doesn't mean that Caesar is going to be the judge. But what Paul is saying is, I've got to get out of Caesarea because this trial isn't going to be fair. And so I want to be tried. And as a Roman citizen, he had the right to do it. And so he says, I want to be tried in the highest courts in Roman law kind of possible, and that's only in Rome. So get me out of this area where the governors are so worried about kind of pleasing the Jewish population, and get me somewhere where this is just going to get thrown out. Now, the thing is Paul also knew that Jesus had told him that he was going to witness in Jerusalem and in Rome. So he knew he was going to get to Rome. And so Paul kind of took this opportunity to go, well, I appeal to Caesar. That gets me to Rome, gets me out of here and gets me to Rome. So even though he still would be going to trial, he knew it would be a fairer trial, and he knew that he would be in Rome, which is where God wanted him to be. Now, Festus kind of doesn't know he's the new one. So Felix was the one before. Festus is a new one. Festus doesn't really know what to do. He's kind of like, I don't get this. There doesn't really seem to be any issue here. Kind of the Jewish leaders are saying this and Paul's saying this, and I don't think it really warrants death. Like, this is pretty irrelevant for me. And so he tries to kind of get on the good side of King Agrippa. Now, Agrippa was the great-grandson of Herod, I'm fairly sure. So in that line, so still one of those, not great kings, similar kind of guy. So he talks to him and he comes up and they talk about stuff. He's like, well, you're a Jew. You're the king of the Jews. You're the one who's kind of ruling over them underneath the governor, obviously, but wanting to be friends with each other. If the Jewish population aren't in revolt, then the governors seem to be, because they were in revolt quite a bit, then the current governors seem to be pretty good by Rome and might get a better posting, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure the Jews are on side so that you have peace and stability, because that makes you look good for a promotion. That's the plan. So he talks to Agrippa, and Agrippa doesn't really do much, but goes, hey, I'd like to hear him as well. I'd like to chat to him. This interests me. So we are going to read for a little bit. And so Acts 25, so this is Paul before Agrippa. Just kind of, because Agrippa says, I want to hear what's going on. So, verse 23. The next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp and entered the audience room with the high-ranking military officers and the prominent men of the city. At the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. Festus said, King Agrippa and all who are present with us, you see this man. The whole Jewish community has petitioned me about him in Jerusalem and here in Caesarea, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. I found he had done nothing deserving of death, but because he made his appeal to the emperor, I decided to send him to Rome. But I have nothing definite to write to his majesty about him. Therefore, I have brought him before all of you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that as a result of this investigation, I may have something to write, for I think it is unreasonable to send a prisoner on to Rome without specifying the charge against him. So, I want to talk a little bit about Agrippa and Bernice and Festus as well, because what we're seeing here again is still powerful people doing the wrong thing. So Bernice had married one kind of ruler, but then was a mistress. So basically she was having an affair, or the other ruler was having an affair with her. Agrippa and Bernice are related, so they're having an incestuous relationship, and that's not uncommon either. If you can remember, John the Baptist is beheaded because he calls out the then king for having being married to his brother's wife. So shouldn't be doing that. She's a mistress of another guy, Vespasian's nephew, so I think nephew or son, something like that. So she is all about sleeping with men of power. That's her kind of thing. That's how she operates. She forms relationships, inappropriate relationships with men of power. That's what she does. Agrippa is not honest, he's not righteous, he's not upright. He had control of the temple, and he had control of the temple treasury. And he is in the same kind of mold as his dad, Herod, and his granddad, Herod, and that kind of, when you think of Herod and you think of what he's like, Agrippa's like him. They're not good people. They're not holy people. They're not people who are right to be ruling the Jewish population. And we see that they come in with great pomp and ceremony. It's about them being seen and them being awesome. And so Paul comes before them and explains himself, and it's all about a bit of a show. It's Festus and Agrippa going, well, this man doesn't deserve to be killed, so he's pleaded to go to Rome, fine, but I need something to say. I can't just send him to Rome saying, this guy needs to be tried in your courts. Because Festus knows that if he has Paul and he sends him to Rome, then the court in Rome is going to go, well, Festus, you sent him here. What's the charge? If he goes, I don't know, then Festus looks bad. Paul gets released because there's no charge, but Festus looks bad as the governor. So he's like, well, I've got to try to find something to say. Agrippa, you help me out. Now, they're trying to be friends with each other. I said before how kind of the kind of Roman governor and the Jewish king at the time would try to be friends with each other because that helped each other out. There were kickbacks, there were lavish parties thrown. If the Roman governor had the Jewish king who was keeping the Jewish population in check, then the Roman governor would be seen favourably and would be getting stuff from the emperor, or likely to get a promotion and go somewhere else nicer, or whatever. But positive things would happen for him. But then also the king, the person who was ruling over the Jews, if they managed to keep the Jews in line and were friendly with the governor, then the governor would give them nice things. They'd have nice cities, all of those kind of things. It was all about helping the people in power keep their power, live lavish lives, be comfortable. It wasn't about making sure that peace was there so there was stability and peace. It was so there's peace so that we can benefit. And Paul is in that boat. So this is another trial that Paul stands before, another time where Paul is brought before to give an account for who he is and what he's done and all the rest of it. Now we're going to see that more and more stuff happens in Paul's life, and from here Paul gets sent off to Rome. So we are winding up in Acts, but we can see that there's a period of time where Paul has done his missionary journeys, he's travelled around, he's shared the gospel, and he's now stuck in the same place. And he's been there for a little while. Now again, yes, he may have been kind of writing some letters at this time, so it would have been productive and he would have been sharing the gospel still, but he's still stuck in Caesarea and he knows God has him bound for Rome. He knows where God wants him. So appealing to Caesar gets him there. Now, I think it's important for us to kind of know this, just so we get the broad scope of things. We are going to be winding up in just a couple of weeks. It won't be long at all. Lights will change soon, because obviously we've been in the same place. Paul has been stuck in Caesarea, which kind of, if we're thinking about area, is like in this area. Not sure which way is which. We'll say this way is north, even though it's kind of actually south. So Caesarea is kind of this area, right? Jerusalem, and we'll say this is Damascus, but Judea, Samaria, Caesarea is up here. Jesus hangs out Caesarea a few times. That's not Rome. He needs to get to Rome, and so appealing to Caesar gets him there. He knows God's plan. He knows God's mission. Hopefully, we can get something out of this. Hopefully, you can see about where things are going, and I hope that, as we continue on through this, you can see how God's plan for bringing the light to the world is starting to take shape and starting to take place. And as we can already see, it's pretty well lit. But how it's going to go from here when it looks like it's all stuck and all stagnant, what God's going to do. Have a great week.